Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Animation Blueprint with me, Stella, and Simon. Today we have two very special guests, Anne and Denomme from CASO and Switch VFX and Animation. Pete and Anne, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
We have discussed in our last episode about where post-heaven is going for. We're having a transition, taking a big leap from service work into developing our own original IP, aiming for the IP funds like Telefilm and Shaw Rocket funds. Thank you both so much for being here today to talk about the industry and your journey, road ahead. Welcome to the show. With your extensive experiences as an executive producer, and having built Switch into what it is today. Is creating a trailer first the right way to go for achieving the IP funds? This is something that we discussed before. And have you done something when you're first starting the business? Is this something that you had in your own plan too? And can you tell us more about what we and how other growing studios should keep in mind when making this leap into the original contents?
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to, Simon. The unfortunate truth about the animation industry in Ontario, specifically in Canada, is the original IP is very hard to do because there's no real funding from Canadian bodies to actually help people develop IP. So you have to use a lot of your own money to do it, and it becomes very expensive. And when you're trying to, and there's nobody really to sell to, so it becomes quite frustrating in how to build a property and properly put it out there into the public. Of course, my innovation division, for years, we developed IP, and with the proper background of your Bibles and your one sheet and your getting together other aspects of it. That you want to have definitely a story arc of 13 episodes and all of that stuff. We developed it. It would cost me $50,000-$60,000 to develop a property to take it to market, and that does include a trailer or a pilot. So you have to include some kind of, because whoever is going to look at this, whether it's a funding body or whether it's a broadcaster or whether it's a co-producer, they have to see what the style is, and they have to understand what your technique's going to be, because that is going to tell them how expensive that particular property is going to be. So it is an expensive venture, and it's a bit of a flyer because nobody knows who's going to buy content or where eyeballs are going. So it's very speculative, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of backing in our government agencies. I mean, the Ontario Creates is a good one. The Shaw Rocket Fund is a good one. There are places you can get bibs and bobs, but it's very, very difficult to do. And you have to really have an entrepreneurial spirit to be able to do that. I'm not sure if I actually answered your question, but I think I'm out of words on that one.
Thank you very much for your answer. So we were talking about the making the trailer, and we need the budget because basically we're showing parts of the movie itself. So we basically have to run the whole department, even to just making a short trailers, because it requires everything in it. And to begin with, the budget is very important.
Yeah, you have to decide how long your piece of string is, and basically everything we've done with our funding to be able to develop IP is that we basically see how much money we have and we design around that. We work backwards because to say, okay, I'm going to go and get X amount of dollars and I'm going to do a 10-minute trailer, it's not really feasible. You got to say, okay, we can get X amount of dollars. How much per minute can that do? How much can we do for that? And what can we show for that? And that's a more proper way, because then you're going to put more, it might be less time, but you're going to put more dollars on the screen. So if that makes any sense.
So those funds has to be first started with like your own pocket, or maybe asking for an individual angel fund investors.
It's ironically it's always my pocket in the end, but a lot of it comes from the IP funds as well. The Shaw Rocket and those kind of guys, and the Bell had a fund that would develop stuff as well. So there are areas that you can use, but 9 times out of 10, if you can't find angel investors, it will eventually. You have to decide how much you're going to put into it as well. I know there's going to be sweat equity, but there might be hard dollars there too, and you want to keep that one to a minimum.
That's a great point. Now, if we can go back to the Switch animation and VFX, Switch handles both visual effects and animation. What creative synergies or unique advantages do you find from having both of these distinct disciplines under one roof?
Well, I mean, Simon, you would know this more than anybody. You graduated from Sheridan College. You know what it's like to be an animator, and you've done visual effects for Switch Animation. A lot of people don't realize how close those silos are and how you can unilaterally bring people from one side of the equation to the other side, and it's quite interchangeable. The specifics of getting an animator to animate something, whether it be a quadruped or a biped or a human, that's a different animal. But everything else is actually very, very interchangeable, and you can take from Peter to feed Paul in a lot of cases, and that's been the success of having a small studio that I'm able to use my visual effects artists on my animation project. So because it's so similar in the softwares and everything, you're just putting your brain in a different aspect of what you're doing. And again, I think you would know more of this than anybody. Stella, I'm not sure of your background, but animation really tends to go into visual effects and vice versa. Not necessarily all 100% of the disciplines, but I'd say 80% of the disciplines are cross-pollinated.
Well, and because of that, it's why your studio has been around for as long as it has, because you've in the past have been able to support one side when the other side wasn't as busy and vice versa.
That's actually very true, and but you know, because as Stella and Simon are quite aware, the animation industry as we know it in this day and age kind of really doesn't exist. So we're relying heavily on visual effects at this point, but we're hoping, you know, like everybody else in the world is, that there's going to be an uptick in animation soon.
That's true. So, Pete, you have been wearing both hats as co-chair at CASO. What is your overreaching vision for the organization? Like, aside from the policy work, your core mission, are you focusing on elevating the community?
I'm actually going to let Anne handle that, because she's the one that looks after the higher level stuff.
The short answer to your question, Stella, is yes. You know, CASO's role is to elevate the industry. It is to ensure that we are competing well on a global stage. So we have a board of individuals like Pete that I report to. There's about a dozen very passionate animation and visual effects people who make up the board, who help craft its priorities and its vision with our membership of studios. And we really, yes, we focus on advocacy and working with the government to make sure our industry is recognized. But we also focus on areas of professional development. That's an area keen to Pete's heart as a co-chair. And we do some marketing initiatives as well. So those are sort of the three key pillars, but those pillars are all intended to support the idea that we as studios within the region of Ontario are, you know, elevating our stature and promoting ourselves and, you know, hopefully growing the entire industry.
Ontario has been such a strong scene for animation, both animation and VFX industry. Why do you think Ontario is so unique in this area that we do? Is it at the talent pool or?
Yeah, that's primary. The amount of schools and higher educational things, and which is one of our initiatives at CASO, is dealing with those people. Is that we have a talent from the Senecas and the Sheridans and all of these other feeder colleges. We have the best system in the world to train people for our industry, and that shows in the work that we're able to produce as producers of large and small companies. And I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously having that infrastructure and producing the level of talent that we can from our schools definitely sets us apart from other regions. But I also think there's two other sort of aspects that are as important. One is that we have had fairly consistent support from our government to support our industry, the film and television industry as a whole. You hear a lot about, tax credits from different areas of the world, from the United States. But what we can say in Ontario is our tax credits have been consistent and reliable. So that's another factor. And then the third thing that I would suggest is that there's a very collaborative spirit in Ontario. I don't know whether it's unique or not, but I do think it's a strength of our region here in terms of the studios that work together, that share work. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is a very competitive industry and people are very business minded. But I do believe there is a competitive spirit in Ontario that I'm not necessarily sure is present elsewhere.
Yeah, this was also going to be my next question, but you kind of answered it. It's a very competitive global market. How does CASO create a comfortable environment for all these studios to collaborate together?
We set out a number of years ago. I apologize, I don't know how long, but more than 5,
That's
I
right.
would suggest, for the organization to have a very clear mandate. And the board members who are brought on to guide that mandate are all, voted on by the membership. They're all passionate individuals who have different areas of expertise, veterans and, not newcomers, but, relatively new in the industry. And I think, it's decided who comes on to work this way, work with this organization, that I would suggest to you, all of them have the sort of rising tide floats all boats mentality that, if we can make the entire industry better, we're all going to be successful. And so I think that sort of attitude from the board then permeates down to the members who, sort of have the understanding that that's what the role of this group is.
Yeah,
That's great. Our industry is notorious for intense workload, as we all understand. Pete, how do you foster a healthy studio cultures at Switch to keep artists inspired? And do you see that same care reflecting across other CASO members in CASO's office as well? Members from CASO and members from Switch. How do you maintain the healthy studio culture?
That's a tough one. When John Campins and I set out to start Switch, our whole mandate was the work-life balance had to be right. I mean, I ran Alliance Atlantis' visual effects animation division, and I hated every minute. There was 140 people, and all we did was work. It was terrible. I had ulcers, and John came back away from GVFX, and they had the same mentality there. And we said to ourselves, we're an artist-driven studio. We only can get the best work out of these people when they can only work at their best. We can't drive them. So we're very cognizant of on what we are able to take on and accomplish in a time period. And that's our formula has worked. I can't speak for other studios, but don't get me wrong. I would be a lot more successful if I drove these people the way that a lot of other facilities do. It's just not in my nature to do that, and that's not what the mandate of my studio is and never has been. I can honestly tell you one of the reasons is it must be going well because I've had people with me for 17 and 18 years. So I must be doing something right. But again, I can't speak for other studios. I've heard stories. But, everybody has their peak times. Simon, you know this as well, where you're really getting pushed. And we do have those, don't get me wrong, but they're well compensated in lieu time afterwards to be able to say, thank you very much. Now you go and take a break because this was untoward. And those pressure times never come from our scheduling. They're all predicated from the producers making the decision of what we have to do. So that's the type of the business, but I think over the span of my company, it's only happened 3 times.
So between Switch and CASO, both of you interact with a massive amount of talented people. Do you have any advice for those who are just breaking in the industry of VFX and animation in Ontario?
Well, I can before Anne jumps in, because I know she's going to have a different take on this. I think the biggest thing you got to do is you got to park your ego. I mean, this is a huge industry, and again, when I graduated from Sheridan as an animator, I realized I sucked. I was not going to be a good animator in this industry, and I thought, you know what? The only way I'm going to make it is if I get into the production side of things, and egos kill people. They kill the talent. They kill everybody around them. It's a collaborative industry. You've got to work with other people, and you got to realize how to work with other people. And think so. Again, park your ego and just because you learn from everybody. I'm still learning today, so it's you got to really put that in mind when you're getting into this industry.
Yeah. That's wonderful. It's the same thing that Anne said before when it came to the studios, how they collaborate together, right? They are benefiting each other. So it's a teamwork in the end of the day. Thank you. That's great.
I would add that, I mean, the industry right now is going through a transition unlike anything that's the industry has ever seen before in its history. And nobody has the answer. There isn't some, magic that some people know that other people don't. And everyone is navigating this at the same time. So I would suggest that people have, 2 more qualities: flexibility, because we're going to make mistakes as we move through this new environment. So I would suggest people need to be flexible, but also I would add to that, it would be fantastic to have an entrepreneurial spirit. This industry, from what I have learned, and I have only been in this industry and involved in this industry for a decade. I was in the broadcasting industry and the media industry prior to that. But in the 10 years, what I've seen is this industry is really built on those who have an entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that in today's evolution, it is vital and more important than it ever has been.
Yeah.
So, but how about Switch VFX and animation, Pete? Do you have what would be the 5-year plan for you?
Simon, I don't think you asked a 65-year-old man that question, but I'll try to answer it anyway. The interesting thing is I used to do 5-year plans of what it was going to be. But I can honestly tell you that you can't do that anymore. You have to pivot quicker and quicker and quicker. And you have to see where the tide is going and just try to be just behind the tide. And, as Anne said, the biggest frustration that I'm finding with the other CASO members and non-CASO members and artists we're all these little fishbowls out there, and we all think we're in this alone, and we're not. We're going through all the pain together. And all we got to do is that if you talk to somebody, I was talking to an executive producer at a smaller VFX house the other day, and I said, you know what, dude? You're going through exactly the same thing as everybody else. Just stay the course. Let's try to get through this. And when you realize you're actually not going insane, it's actually healthy. It's actually realize that we're all going to make it.
Well.
We just don't know what the answer is, but we will make it.
I would, of course, because I always have something to say, as Pete well knows, I would add to that one thing that I actually forgot to mention that sort of sets Ontario apart is, Ontario was on the forefront of a lot of the technological advances and technology that supports our industry. So, with things like side effects, Harmony, those kinds of things, all coming from Ontario-based companies. So, that is something that sets us apart. So, I would hope that in the 5 years moving forward, that we, as CASO, are still supporting an industry that's on the forefront of technology advancements, particularly at this point in time where, technology is changing so rapidly again. And as well, would add to that, that I would hope 5 years from now, the CASO membership is, as strong as it is now or stronger, because that group of people working together really allows us to have the level of intelligence we need to help the entire industry. It's not one person's idea. It's not, one thing that gets done that's going to help us compete globally. And this truly is a global industry. We need that brain trust of people elevating our industry.
Yes, we have great tools that's already been developed in Ontario, just like you said, including side effects, and even Maya was also once was developed. So all those great tools were developed in Ontario, and
They were.
Yes. And do you see any more tools that has to be like there? Like, do we have enough tools already, or not just in the creative side, but let's say for administrative side or production side? Because now we have all the accessibility to all those tools that anyone can basically create with an AI, using AI to create tools, not just the videos. But if those tools can create synergies to maybe connect each other, or project managing side, have you ever imagined what kind, the ideal tool that you want to use for your production and administrations?
Wow, that's a wide varying question that has so many answers to it. But I mean, the biggest thing is that we share work around the city on different shows. So with Shotgun, we're able to change elements. Everybody basically uses the same tools, but everybody has certain plugins that they have too to add to their functionality. And those plugins are the difference between making your studio unique or not. And I mean, AI is this big elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, but we can't stick our head in the sand about it. Is the answer, the be-all and answer right now? Absolutely not. It's a nice little add-on if you can put it in different aspects of your pipeline, but to depend on it to deliver for producers, I think it's a fool's game at this point. But the whole point is that you have to have a division of your company that's constantly looking at areas that are going to give you an advantage. If I can build something in AI that takes an hour as opposed to 2 days, of course we're going to do that. But these are the things, the small little increments that you're not going to go heavily invested in. That's, I think, the way that, especially as a boutique studio like mine, that's kind of the way we're going down the road.
I think evolution and this time of evolution is going to bring about some of the things, that will answer the question that you just asked. We don't know what they are yet, but that entrepreneurial spirit is what's going to find it.
Because it seems to be that some of the great producers in Hollywood, including Steven Spielberg or James Cameron, they mentioned about the creation of AIs too, and we don't really sure what's right or wrong, as you said, and for some of the artists that's already been in the industries, and some of the companies seems to be they're pushing forwards to the existing artists to learn about AIs and to actually try to find a way to using it to fulfill what the producers' needs are. Do you have any perspective on that?
Yeah, I do. You have to always acknowledge, Simon, that our industry is based on artistry, and it's a different brush that you're going to use. AI is a different brush. That's all. It's going to take an artist to create. Yeah, it's going to take an artist to create everything, and the limitations of that artist are have no bounds. But if you think that technology is going to take over the artistry of our industry, I think you're sadly mistaken. It's going to still be driven by the art form that we, especially in animation. We've all seen AI animation right now, and we just shake our heads because it's just like, what are they thinking? There's nothing there. But I think that we got to keep plugging back in the fact that we're all artists, and using the tools in a different way is going to be the advantage. And you and Stella have an advantage because you come from an artist background.
What I'm wondering, because we always go to the topic of AI, we always talk about it, but right now it's a little bit unsure yet where it's going to go and how the studios are going to implement it. But what I'm wondering is that if a global studio starts implementing AI, aren't the other studios as well going to try to get to that standard? So at some point, it's going to become a standard to use AI. So it's kind of a...
Well, come on. The standard is going to be the artistic standard. You could do something all in AI, because what is happening in visual effects right now, companies are doing things in all AI, and the producers are going, we don't like it. We hate it, actually.
Yeah.
You got to change it. And they're going, well, we can't change it. We've got to start all over again. And producers are getting very frustrated by this aspect because they love change orders, and that's what they do. And when you do AI, you're pigeonholed into that one return, and then unless you got to start all over again. So it again still goes back to the artistry. Nobody's going to mandate how you do it. They're certainly going to mandate the cost of how you do it, but they're not going to tell you how to make the sausage. They're going to just tell you what the sausage costs.
Yes. Hallucinations is always the great risk. Even try to implement in our pipeline with using AI is not an easy topic too. And these artists who already built their knowledges and skills over time, they're already kind of like comfortable in their comfort zone, even in the studios. And if we tell them to try to explore more tools that's been, developed now, it's also hard for them to actually like get another step into that. So,
well, even more to that point, with our educational initiative that I have as a subcommittee of CASO, we can't even get the colleges to introduce AI into their curriculums because by the time they introduce it, it's obsolete. So but we are trying to do that, and that goes to your point, Simon, about they like where they are. They like where, this is what I do, this is what I learned, and the instructors don't want to learn how to think about AI because they're comfortable teaching what they're teaching. But the adaptability of our studios has to rely on what's coming out of the colleges. And if they're not introducing some kind of AI in the colleges, our studios are going to be less effective.
Instead of the colleges, they're increasing these kind of curriculums. Sometimes they're like also in a great risk right now in terms of the IRCC caps, all those kind of things, and then they're actually reducing the number of the programs now. And merging into maybe a business, or I wouldn't say it's a bad movement for some colleges that does it. So they rejected all the art programs and then they merged it into the business programs. But I don't know how they will be able to connect between the business and art and designs or AI.
Well, again, I don't. Just one. I'll let you go in a minute, Anne. One of the biggest things, Simon, that you and I touched on before is that when we took animation, nobody taught us how to be business people because we come out and you basically are a business. You're running a business, and I think there has a certain amount of business that has to be taught in the artist side of things. That's why through CASO and TMU, we got a micro course of teaching animation and visual effects production management. It was because we heard from the industry, this is a micro course that people want to learn from. And these are the kind of micro courses that we're trying to do with CASO to be able to get them out into the industry where you're going to get trained in a 6-month period and you're going to have the qualifications that we all need in our studios. So
that's really great.
we're trying to really touch on those things, because the Minister of Education has told us that micro-credentials are the next biggest thing. That's what she's going to invest a lot of stuff in. So that's where our key is. And if it has to do with AI, we're going to do it. It has to do with visual effects supervision on set, we're going to do it. But we have to start thinking that way of how we're going to help educate the people, because 3-year courses are not the answer anymore. You have to have the adaptability of doing something else and be able to, okay, I got to go over here. I got to learn this now. Okay. You can never stop learning.
Just while we're talking about education, again, another role of CASO, because of the fact of our pillar of supporting professional development, we came up with, in the end of 2025, a document that basically had input from educators as well as industry folks to suggest to the government, this is the minimum skills that we as the industry would like graduates to have when they come out. Because what we were hearing from our membership was, it's taking us another year to train artists, once they are entry level within the studio. So again, this is another, sort of area for CASO where we're now in the process of refreshing that document. Again, because we went into it with the commitment of we would refresh it annually because things change so much, but we are trying our best to get educators and the colleges to understand what the studios need in order that graduates will, it's a benefit to graduates as well as the studio. We want success on both sides. So, we are looking to do that. And the other thing I just wanted to quickly touch on from an AI perspective is, you suggest that, at some point in time, if large studios begin to use it, maybe everyone will have to. We don't know what that answer is yet. But again, CASO's going to have a conversation with our industry about that in the fall of 2026, where we're going to put on a half day that basically, in a very loose way, is where should AI be in the pipeline? Mm-hmm. Because we know that people are using it, experimenting with it, trying to figure out what to do with it. So we thought if we actually had an open conversation about where should it be, recognizing that, we are still an art form at heart, but let's have an open conversation on where should it be in the pipeline, and an open conversation with the industry. So we'll see how that goes in the fall.
That's great.
That's great. Yes, that's what we need. So talking about the business and the global business, that this can be also interconnected with our tax credit, and it will be a little bit hurting topic that a lot of works are now overseas. So through Netflix, where they're going towards is the Asian market. Asian vendors that they're working with, because they are working for such a low amount of budget, and we Ontario and some of the other provinces, our advantage was to give out the tax credits, but comparing these benefits of the tax credit and those lower budgets that's being done in Asian market, like, are we still be able to keep up this competitive rates for the producers?
You can't lock everything in together. The rates have to go with the quality. It has to go with the deliverability. There's a lot of other things that have to go. Nobody just goes for price. There's too many other silos that have to go into that decision. And price is always going to be one, but it's never going to be the driving force. If it was the driving force, all you'd see is shit animation. That's not true. You're seeing good animation still, but you got to think differently. We cannot think of the way we do business today is the way we're going to do business a year from now. You got to know that. And if you're not accepting that, then I think you should decide on doing something else. But this business as we know it is not going to exist the same way. And this has always been a global environment, and you can't shy away from that. You got to lean into what we do well here in Ontario and in Canada and accentuate that. That's the strength.
Because when I try to watch anything on the Netflix these days, instead of they are investing on some of the heavy CGI or VFX contents, they tends to go more towards it's just the studio and some lights and the camera and the variety shows, and people are still like consuming those kind of contents these days, and they think that people will still maintaining their subscriptions, and why would kind of invest in some of the heavy VFXs where it costs a lot, whereas we can just rent a small studio wherever, just put some cameras and then a few crews in there and then sound guy and some lights, and boom, like there's a contents people are watching now. So I don't know any opinions on that.
I don't disagree with that take, but there is only there's always been degrees of levels of what you see on television and what you see in the theater, and sure, people will go and see that, and people will watch it, but not long term, not again and again and again and again. And that's what Netflix wants. They want the eyeballs to keep going back to that episode. You watch something like once, you're not going to watch it again. So. Yeah. I think it's a fad right now, and it seems like it's a race to the bottom, but I have more faith in our industry that again, being an artist-based industry, I have more faith that in the people that are making these decisions, that they're going to make better decisions.
We only have 5 more minutes left. Anything that you wish to share for us or for the audiences?
Well, that's a hard one, because I think we could talk for the next 2 hours and still not even scratch on, a lot of these things in the industry. I mean, this is what Anne and I talk about CASO, because our mandates from CASO don't come from our board. Our mandates come from our industry. They tell us what they would like to us accomplish, and our mandate is do a few things well, and we only take on 2 or 3 things a year. And we want to get them accomplished in a fiscal year. So we don't come up with the topics of, if they wanted us to go and say, okay, we want you to devote 100% of your time on what is the next thing with AI. That's what we've been mandated to do. They pay their membership dues. We do what they're told. Even though I might disagree with a lot of things that we're doing or what we're acting on, that's what I'm told to do. And it's for the betterment of the industry. So that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, thank you for all your answers. We're actually learning a lot of stuff while doing this conversation. Because now me and Simon are building our first animated short. So we are always in a discussion about either AI or even if we should, like the time length it might take to make a movie, the quality of it. But as you mentioned, you said a very good point that there might be a lot of content out there in Netflix or anywhere, but in order to make it memorable, you have to do a good job, right?
You got to keep in mind when you're developing your own content, don't overdevelop it. Don't overthink it, because you overdevelop something and it sits and it becomes stale. You have to talk to trusted people and show them what you got and spend your energy wisely. I've done it myself. You fall in love with something so much that nobody's going to tell you that it sucks. And it's like, no, actually, this is not a good thing. It'll be a money pit for you that you're going to love, but nobody's going to like it. So you got to expose it to people that you trust so that you can get the proper feedback that you're looking for to get it to that next level.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Is the global collaboration a good thing?
100%. We live in a global environment. Absolutely. You know what? If you're just designing something for the North American market, it's going to die on the vine. You won't do it. You have to, we talked about South Korea. They're the biggest consumer of animation right now, and you have to have this global feel that it's going to appeal to them and Canada and the United States and Latin America and Europe. It has to be this, we're now thinking animation and globally more than anything right now. So I think you definitely, absolutely, 100%, Anne.
Do we have enough platforms to collaborate or managing all those collaboration all together? And if there's not, do we need something
hell no. Hell no. We basically have no platforms. The platforms you're going to use are so limited compared to they were 3 years ago. basically nobody's buying content. So you have to go to online sources and create a buzz there. There's so many things that you have to do. That's why I suggested the couple of people to talk to, Simon, next, because this is what they're trying to do. And they're trying to get their word out in a different way. Because the first thing you want to do is you want to get eyeballs on your content and generate interest. And then you've got something.
Those are great points. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Anne and Pete, for being with us today. It was a pleasure.
Okay.
So
best of luck. Yeah. And Simon, if you want to send me anything, I'm happy to look at it, and give you my unbiased opinion.
That'll be super great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay.
Right.
Cheers,
see you
guys.
all in the next episode. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.